साईं राम, मुझे याद दिलाइए हम लोगों को आज क्या करना है। पूजा, तुम्हारा माइक ऑन है? अगर कुछ काम की बात है तो बोलिए, नहीं तो माइक अपना ऑफ रखिए। यस
साईं राम मैम।
साईं राम बेटा, मुझे याद दिलाइए हमें आज क्या करना है। व्हाट वाज ऑन द एजेंडा टुडे?
मैम हमें हिस्ट्री का
हिस्ट्री का क्या करना है? चैप्टर करना है, क्वेश्चन आंसर करने हैं,
मैम
डिस्कशन?
चैप्टर नंबर 8 वुमेन कास्ट एंड रिफॉर्म को हमें कंटिन्यू करना था।
अच्छा, कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ है वो?
नो मैम, उस दिन आपका नेटवर्क चला गया था।
Oh yes,
डाटा
yes.
क्लासेस दिखा रहे थे।
I remember it now. Just give me 1 minute. I'll find the class edge link. सोशल रिफॉर्मर्स देख लिए थे कि हम लोगों ने शुरू करा था ये चैप्टर। कुछ वीडियो देखा था क्या इसका बेटा?
मैम उस दिन वो टाटा खुला नहीं था।
अच्छा, तो मतलब हमें बिल्कुल शुरुआत से ही करना है। उस दिन हम लोगों ने केवल डिस्कशन किया था। ओके,
यस मैम।
ऑलराइट, सो सेम रूल्स अप्लाई। कुछ अगर प्रॉब्लम आ रही है तो आप उसको रिव्यू कर, आप अपना कनेक्शन एक बार रीसेट कर लीजिएगा एंड इट विल बी विजिबल टू यू अगेन। एंड इफ देयर इज एनी प्रॉब्लम, राइट इट डाउन बाय द एंड ऑफ दिस क्लास, वी विल डिस्कस. So first we are going to discuss how, see by Tata class that how was the status of women in the 18th century.
The social structure of society in India has not been very sensitive to the needs of the girl child in the past. But things are fast changing. Today, many laws protect the interest of the girl child. The law demands that a girl must be 18 years old before she can be married, thus doing away with the social. The law also maintains that once a girl attains the marriage age, she can marry a person of her choice. Widows can remarry too. The law of the land also gives women the right not only to vote but also to contest elections. Women have also been accorded legal rights to property and inheritance. Today, more girls are attaining higher education and joining the workforce. Thus, they enjoy equal rights in society. It will not be wrong to say that the government has brought in many reforms and laws to protect the interests of women and girl children so that they can live a life of freedom. If this freedom is challenged, they can seek constitutional or legal remedies. However, it may be noted that some of these rights are not enjoyed by girls and women who belong to the weaker sections of society. Since most are not educated, they neither know the laws nor can contest the inequality meted out to them. Let us take a look at the status of women in 18th century India. Women didn't enjoy much freedom, rights, or equality in those days. Moreover, the evil practices of those times made the life of women quite miserable. Girls had little or no access to education. In fact, a superstition prevailed that if women were educated, they would become widows. Girls were married off at an early age. They did not have the freedom to choose their husbands. Widows were not allowed to remarry. The evil practice of sati, in which the wife was burnt alive in the funeral pyre of her husband if his death preceded hers, plagued the society. Women who died in this manner, that is by committing sati, were considered virtuous. Men in many communities practiced polygamy. Women had no or restricted rights on property. Differences between men and women were not the only issue of those times. In most regions, people were divided along lines of caste. Brahmins were the scholars, teachers and priests who enjoyed the highest position in society. The Kshatriyas were the rulers and the warrior class. Both of these groups considered themselves as the upper castes. Others, such as traders and moneylenders, often referred to as Vaishyas, were placed after them. Then came peasants and artisans such as weavers and potters, referred to as Shudras. At the lowest level were those who worked to keep the city clean by doing menial jobs. They were considered as polluting by the upper castes and hence were not allowed entry into temples or draw wells from the same wells as those of the upper caste. From the early 19th century, debates and discussions about social customs and practices took on a new character. One important reason for this was the development of new forms of communication like the print media. For the first time, books, newspapers, magazines, leaflets and pamphlets were printed. These were far cheaper and far more accessible than the manuscripts written by hand. All kinds of issues, social, political, religious or economic, could now be debated upon and ideas shared with people in other cities. Many Indians who received English education started questioning the evil practices prevalent in society. Soon these discussions became the cause of social change as reformers formed new social groups. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one such reformer. He formed the Brahmo Samaj. He was keen to spread Western education and strongly opposed the ill treatment meted out to women in general. He played an important role in getting the practice of sati abolished in 1829. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was instrumental in the British passing the law that permitted widow remarriage. Many scholars propagated the idea of educating the girl child as they felt that only education could help improve the condition of women in society. Thus, slowly, the winds of change moved in favor of women in the Indian subcontinent. Who among
Why are you so upset, Natasha?
Grandma, Papa is not allowing me to go out to play and has asked me to study instead.
Natasha, my child, I think you do not realize how lucky you are. When I was a young girl, women in India weren't allowed to study, even if they wanted to.
Are you joking, Grandma?
Certainly not. Girls in India were deprived of formal education and married off at a young age. Unlike today, women were not allowed to step outside the house freely. There also existed a cruel practice called sati, whereby a wife was burned alive on her husband's funeral pyre.
Really, Grandma? How did these terrible practices come to an end?
The credit goes to some liberal-minded men and women who had the courage and commitment to oppose these practices. One of them was a Sanskrit scholar called Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was deeply touched when his sister-in-law was forced to perform sati on his brother's funeral pyre and began to campaign against the practice of sati. Since sati was considered a religious act, he showed people that there was no mention of sati in ancient religious texts. Due to his efforts, the British government banned sati in 1829. Yet, on the other hand, a woman whose husband died was not allowed to remarry and was treated very poorly. She was expected to dress plainly, eat poorly, and avoid celebrations. In this scenario, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar began to campaign for widow remarriage. He too used religious texts to show people that there was no prohibition against widow remarriage in them. The British supported him and passed the Widow Remarriage Act in 1856.
That was easy.
Oh no, it was not. Passing a law did not mean that people would immediately implement it. Many Indians, especially upper caste Orthodox Hindus, opposed the law. But the change was set in motion, and other reformers like Veera Salingam Pantulu and Swami Dayanand Saraswati began to support widow remarriage. Reformers like Vidyasagar also felt that education was essential for women and started schools for girls. However, people were worried that girls would be corrupted in schools and would not do household chores. Yet, as more schools opened and women got educated, they began to fight for their own betterment. Reformers like Mumtaz Ali used verses from the Quran to argue for women's education. Others, like Tarabai Shinde and Pandita Ramabai wrote books that challenged the inequality between men and women. By the early 20th century, women started forming their own political pressure groups to achieve their demands.
And today, women have established their presence in every field.
Yes, and one day you will do so too. But right now, I think you should finish off your studies.
I think whatever it said, we had already discussed it in the previous lessons. हम लोगों ने राजा राम मोहन रॉय को भी डिस्कस कर लिया था, हम लोगों ने सती प्रथा भी डिस्कस करी थी, हम लोगों ने विमेन एजुकेशन भी डिस्कस करी थी. We just went in depth watching this video. लेकिन if there is something जो आपको ऐसा लग रहा है कि आपको नहीं समझ में आया और you need to revisit, you may ask. उसके बाद हम आगे बढ़ेंगे. पूछिए. Anything, anyone? बच्चों बुक पढ़ रहे हो कि नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, ईमानदारी से बताओ. मेरी आवाज आ रही है? Am I audible?
यस मैम.
यस
मैम आपने जब ये स्टार्टिंग में चैप्टर स्टार्ट हुआ था तब आपने बताया था कि जो सती प्रथा थी तो उसके बाद उन लोगों को सॉल्टी खाना भी नहीं खाने देते थे, मतलब स्पाइसी वगैरह स्पाइस डाल के. तो मैम ये सब क्यों था कि वो लोग अच्छा खाना क्यों नहीं खा सकते थे?
बेटा, because they were considered cursed by the god, कि because it is that your husband died, it means you are cursed. ये उस टाइम की सामाजिक मानसिकता थी. It was the attitude of the society towards women who have lost their husband. They were not treated nicely. They were considered to be कि अब तुमसे गलती हुई है तो तुम्हें उसकी सजा भुगतनी पड़ेगी. It is very very bad. It's extremely bad. And that is why it is considered a social evil to treat a human being like that when they are not at fault at all. और ये दो अलग चीजें हैं. विडोहुड अलग था, सती प्रथा अलग थी. सती तो वो है कि they were expected to die along with the husband, but sometimes or at some places if they survived, they were considered widow and they were treated very badly.
मैम लास्ट सती प्रथा कब हुई थी?
बेटा अब उसके लिए हम ऐसा सच रिकॉर्ड तो नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन ब्रिटिशर्स ने इसके अगेंस्ट एक लॉ पास किया था जिसके बाद लॉफुली वो बंद हो गई थी, लेकिन फिर भी कुछ लोग करते ही थे, मानते ही थे. और कोई सवाल?
मैम लोग बाग उनको अपने घर में क्यों नहीं रखते थे?
बेटा द सेम थिंग कि आपकी कोई गलती है, ऐसा माना जाता था कि उनकी गलती है that their husband died, which is very wrong. तो गलती का पनिशमेंट दिया जाता था उन्हें अलग रख के, उनकी लाइफ को डिफिकल्ट बना के. Just try to imagine the difficulties of life of women especially. कितनी डिफिकल्टीज रही होंगी उनकी लाइफ में कि जो चीजें उनके कंट्रोल में भी नहीं है उसके लिए उन्हें पनिश किया जा रहा है. दे आर बीइंग इल ट्रीटेड फॉर दैट. हाउ बैड इट इज एज अ सोसाइटी, how cruel it is as a society, and how unfair that is. Any other question? Okay, then we will move ahead with the class edge video.
Until the late 18th century, women in India did not enjoy much freedom or equality. They could not go to school to gain education, marry men of their choice, or inherit property. Many customs and practices such as child marriage, polygamy, and sati further oppressed women. Furthermore, widows were not allowed to remarry. From the early 19th century, Indian reformers tried to effect changes in the existing customs so that the plight of women could be improved. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one such a reformer. He is best known for campaigning against the evil practice of sati. Due to his efforts, sati was finally banned in 1829. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar advocated widow remarriage and stressed the need to educate the girl child. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, founder of Arya Samaj, also supported widow remarriage and education of the girl child. Did you notice something here? All these early reformers were men. Does it not make you wonder that were there only men who fought for social equality for women? Or were there women too who fought for their rights? Let's find out. From the early 20th century onwards, participation of women towards improving the status of women in society became more visible. Begums of Bhopal promoted women's education in the early 20th century. They started a primary school for girls in Aligarh. Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hossain was a notable reformer who fought against conservative ideas. She felt that religious leaders of all religions were responsible in according an inferior position to women. She founded schools in Patna and Calcutta for Muslim girls. Tarabai Shinde was another great women reformer. She published a book titled Stri Purush Tulna, in which she criticized the inequalities women faced in the society. Have you heard of Pandita Ramabai? She criticized the oppressive ways of Hinduism. She highlighted the woes of upper caste Hindu women. She also founded a shelter home in Pune for widows and women ill-treated by their husbands. These women were trained to become economically independent. In the latter part of the 19th century, few Muslim women like Mumtaz Ali translated verses from Quran for the cause of women's education. Women learnt to read and write in Arabic, and they were taught at home by other women. By the end of 19th century, Urdu novels began to be written. Now, let us see how these different reform movements impacted the life of women in India by the late 19th century and early 20th century. With due encouragement received, women now entered universities. Some trained to become doctors, while others became teachers. Others wrote and edited books criticizing social customs that oppressed women. Women founded schools and training centers exclusively for women and established women's associations. By the turn of the 20th century, they worked towards according voting rights for women and acquiring better healthcare for women. From the 1920s, women joined nationalist and socialist movements. All these attempts found results in the coming years. National leaders, too, recognized the need for equality and freedom to women. The result is the status of women has improved progressively over the years. Who wrote Stri Purush Tulna? Select the correct option.
Have you ever wondered? Who are the people who clean our drains? Who picks up the garbage? Who cleans the streets? Are they any different from us? Would their children like to do the same jobs? When certain jobs are strictly assigned to certain castes, and some castes are considered inferior to others, we call it caste discrimination. During the late 19th century, some social reformers worked hard to eliminate caste discrimination from the Indian society. Click on the names of these social reformers to learn more. Ghasidas, born in the village Girodpuri in Raipur district in a Dalit family, believed that all people were equal. He raised his voice against the caste system through his Satnami movement. The Satnami movement was focused on improving the status of the deprived people, especially leather workers, in society. Srinarayana Guru, born in an Ezava family in the caste-ridden Kerala society, did not believe in caste distinctions and respected all religions and philosophies. He set up temples at Aruvitpuram and other places where people of all castes were allowed to enter. He believed that education would help one progress in life, and hence started various educational institutes for Dalits and other backward classes. Jyotirao Phule was one of the most vocal critics of the injustices of the caste system. He was born in the Satara district of Maharashtra among the lower castes and studied in schools set up by Christian missionaries. He set up the Satyashodhak Samaj to work for the upliftment of women and untouchables. His book Gulamgiri stresses the plight of untouchables in India.
Yes, any questions from anyone about anything? हम लोग अब women plight को खत्म करके we have started working on the social reforms क्योंकि हम already marginalization पढ़ चुके हैं. I think it will be relatively easier to understand that how historically communities have been marginalized and how badly they were treated. Yes, is there any question from anyone?
मैम घासीदास जो इनमें बताया गया वो कहाँ के थे?
Let me just confirm. Well, he was born in the area of Chhattisgarh, and it is the sect that he created, Satnami sect. It is very similar to to Sikhism.
Okay.
Any other thing? All right. So if the women rejected these rules, they were ostracized or marginalized by the society. उनको सोसाइटी से बाहर निकाल दिया जाता था. They were treated even more badly after that. अच्छा
मैम बट उन लोगों को तो वुमेन्स को तो मैम रस्सी से बांध के जबरदस्ती बिठाया जाता था, फिर मैम वो कैसे हट जाते थे उधर से?
some used to some could have escaped, we don't know, we were not exactly there. There are a lot of times that prisoners also escape, so there is always a scope. And there is one thing just for Tanisha, beta, join on time, all the very best, we'll be waiting for you and hoping the best from you in the quiz. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
So that will be all for today. Thank you and Sairam. हम लोग इसी को continue करेंगे in the next class.
Ma'am, thank you.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.